everyone, welcome to justlaravel.com. I'm back with another video in this series. So here in this video, I'm going to tell you about routing in Laravel, specifically Laravel 8. So in this video, I'll cover what is routing, what are different ways we can do this routing, how to pass data from routes, how to call these routes from anywhere in the application, and also I'll tell you about what are named routes. So all this stuff I'll cover in this video. Let me hop into my computer and show all this. So stay tuned for that. So I have opened my IDE. So this is the example app which I've created in previous video where I explained you about all the directory structure. So here, as I said, I'll tell you about routing. And firstly, what is routing? So if you open this example app, I will just go to the documentation just to explain this routing in this laravel.com website. If you see the path after laravel.com /docs/8.x, if I go to this URL, I'm seeing this page. Or if I go to this page, I have clicked on this configuration. If you see the URL, this changed to configuration. Similarly for all other pages. So I click deployment here. If I go to the URL, it says deployment. If I change the URL, based upon the URL, the content is changing. So basically the content, how the content changes is when this deployment is passed to the backend, to the Laravel. So what it checks, as I said, it's an MVC. So when this is passed, so when this URL, specifically URI, is passed to show this page, or when some other page is clicked to show that page, that particular thing is called routing. As I show in this example as well, that will be in this routes web.php. As I explained in our application, this is the root, slash is by default. If I don't have anything here, it takes a slash. So that is this slash here. So if I change this to whatever, I'm just naming it whatever, and if I copy this and paste this here, you'll see the same page is shown. But if I go to the default thing, you'll see the error is we are seeing this error 404 not found because there is no URL for that. I've changed the default route to whatever, so only this will work, slash whatever, and any other URL on this site will not work because these are not defined here. So everything, if you see something like this, some URLs like this, there must be some routing configured in the backend to map that. There is only one default route. I've changed to whatever. Let me go back to default ones. I'll save it. I'll go back to this page. So now I'll tell you actually how to make new different routes. So if you see this, there are two parameters for this get function. One is the URI, another, if you see, it is a function and it is returning some text. So what I want to do, I'll just copy this. So just to tell you to create a new view, I'll say test. So if I go to this test, so what I did is I created a new route with the same content here. So if I go to the test, I'll return this page, or if I go to just in default route, I'll return this page, and for all others, I will return a default 404 page. So this is one way to create a URI here, whatever you want to do. And here, if you see in the function, it says return view and it says welcome. So what is this view means? It searches this file name in the views folder. As I said, in the directory structure, the views will be in resources, views. You can see welcome.blade.php. So it will search for this welcome file and it will show whatever present in that welcome file. So this is welcome file. So I created new thing. I'll say welcome. I'll just create a new one called welcome2. I'll get a new file here. Welcome to blade PHP. I'll say something like test page. And I'll save this. Here I've given welcome to. So now I'll go into this test and see whether I'm able to see this test page data or not. So I'll go to test. You can see this test page data is coming. So what I've done is I've created new view. So this is one way of creating a route, like passing a view, static view. This applies only if the content, everything here is static. So other way you can do is like I'll just create route get, I'll say test return, and I'll create function as usual. So here instead of returning a view, you can also return direct text here. Return some static text, hello static text. So here we are returning a view here, and what the data is presented in this view is shown. So I just passed test page as a test data. So here I directly passed the text here itself. I'm just returning the static text. So if I copy this and go to the page and say test return, you see it's returning the text what I've written here, hello static text. So this is one way. So I told you two ways. This is directly calling a view here, and this is directly calling the text here in the roots itself. And there are other ways. The things which I told were basically like static text, and this is also static view. Generally what happens is, as I explained, Laravel is the MVC model view controller, and all this needs to interact. Here in the example we are showing static text, but in a real application based upon the URL, the content changes and the data should come from the database, and there might be some conditions to process. All such things happen, so that we can't do here. We need a controller for that. So I can call a controller here, root get, I'll say call controller. As I said, controllers will reside in app http controllers. I have also created this test controller. And as I also said, we are using this Docker sale substring. So what I'll do is I'll go up here. This is my thing which is running. I'll open one more of this. U12, and I'll go into my example app, and I'll say sale PHP artisan make controller test. So it's not working, so you have to set up first sale. Like you can do this, you have to do this sale to call this vendor bin and sale. And now if you run this sale page partition make controller, it should run now. It's saying syntax error because we have left that in the middle. So I'll save that, I'll comment that, and I will run this again. And I found one more thing. This is spelling mistake here, controller. So one thing here is, if you make any errors, it will show do you mean any of these. That means if I do PHP attention make, and these are all the available commands I can use. You can see controller is here. So you create a new controller, new middleware, new migration, new model. We can create all these things here. So I need just controller. So it says controller created successfully. You see that will be an HTTP controllers test controller. You see this is a test controller. So what I'll do is I'll create a new controller. I'll call test controller class, and I will create a new function here, public, and here for test I'm getting some static data, static from controller. So what I'll do is here in this I'll call this index like this way. So what I've basically done is the same thing which I've done. I'm returning static text here. So the same way I'm returning text here, I call this controller method, and instead of returning statically, I'll go to this controller. Actually, this is not the way. App HTTP control. I'll just call this test controller. So it's in app HTTP controllers, and I'll call at the rate of index. So now if I go to this and call this call controller, you can see this is coming static from controller. So this is one of the way you can create. This is one of the way where you can call this URL, specifically URI. So this particular part is called URI, and the complete thing this is called URL. So here I call this app controller HTTP index, and I call this index. And if you see, this is the thing which we are doing from Laravel 8. And if you go to the previous Laravel versions, the same thing can be written as, we just don't want to mention anything, we'll just write test controller at rate of index. That's it. It used to work, but in Laravel 8, they changed something so that it won't work. This thing won't work. If you see the change here, this is working, but this is not working because here we have given the whole path to be specific, the namespace. We are given the namespace here, but here there is no namespace. So what's happening is, if you go to the root service provider, if you go to this class, previously you can see there's also this there's also a commented thing. There used to be this namespace. By default it's used to call app HTTP controllers. So even if you don't specify this used to work, but they commented this, and if you want to do this, we want to uncomment this and add this namespace here. The namespace is already added here. We just need to uncomment this. If you uncomment this, I'll just show. I just didn't show that this is not working, so let me first show that it won't work in Laravel 8. So I'll call the same call controller test controller at the rate of index. And if you go here and click refresh, you see target class test controller does not work. So you see that it's not working because previously it used to have this. Now it should work. You can see this is working. It's up to you what you want to use. If you're working on Laravel previous versions in the earlier pretty much, and if you want to follow the same thing, you can just uncomment this and use it. Or if you want to follow the new things, you can just comment it and use the new way of calling routes like this. And there's also one more way which Laravel suggests. This is not the actual way which Laravel suggests. So if I control and hover, we are not able to go anywhere. As actually you see, I'm using PHP Storm IDE. Actually, if you see, when I'm clicking control and hovering over it, you can get to that actual functions or properties of that. If you see, I'm going to this route. If you see, I'm going to this get. But what happens is that's a PHP normal PHP style, but we are not able to do that here in this routes. So there is also a variation for this route in Laravel 8. So I'll copy that, I'll call this. So what you need to do is, instead of calling a string, we'll call an array. In the array, the first parameter would be the controller, actual controller, test controller class, and the second parameter would be the function name, index, and you have to also keep this in quotations. This is index is nothing but this function name here. If you call it something else, you should use that something here. So for the sake, I'm just adding it to, so that it's not showing the previous one, and we are going to the new one. I'll just copy this, I'll add it to here, and see static from controller. So this is how you can change. Either you can write this way or this way if you are following Laravel 8 standards. And if you want to do the old way, as I said, you need to make that change in root service provider. This is the old way. So these are the three ways where you can call a controller. So now we'll see how we can pass data from the roots. If you see in the Laravel documentation, as I said, it has this deployment. So if you want to get what is here and change based upon that, we can do some things like here suppose if I call controller id equal to 1 or id equal to something, can call something like that. If I want this to read this parameter, we can change it here, like I'll call this call controller and I'll make this some string. I can call whatever I want. I'll just call this id, and if I go to this function and we basically have this request, we can use that variable so that we'll get all the things which we passed in the request. And I will do dd. Dd is a function which is in Laravel, that means do and die. If you are using normal PHP, you can use where we'll use PHP, I mean we use vardum or print r. So Laravel has its own way, Laravel has its own thing that's called dd, that's do and die. Get, and I will call what is the thing, id. So it will show me the id what I passed here. So I'll see, actually it's showing not found. Let me, you can see I have given this slash here. We don't need, if you are doing like that, we don't need any slash. I'll just do this because I'm just this get parameters. I am telling about this slash and variable, and then I mixed with this get parameters. So this is, I'm telling about the get parameters. I'll just go back to these slash things after this. So if I pass something here in this URL, I can pass some more variables like id2 equal to 23. So if you want to get this, you can directly enter, and I have called the id here. If you see in the controller, I have only printed the id, and in the URL I have given id equal to 12 and it's showing as 12. If I give 1243 something like 1243 something like that, it will show that 1243 here. So similarly, we don't need to change anything in the root to get the to get this to get these variables, because these are called query strings. Everything after URL with question mark starts with a question mark and has some things like key, has something like this. We can get them without any changing in the roots. You can also get this id2, whatever the name we give, we can able to get that based upon the name we have here. If we can call that, it will return the value which we have passed there. We see 23 here. And I'll just copy this and paste this here. I'll just call controller2 slash get this. I'll call the function also as get this. So I'll copy this and I'll create a new function here. Here I need to pass one more thing here, because there's extra thing after this slash. So to get this, I also need to pass one more variable here, like calling as whatever you want, get this or whatever you want. You can pass that here, get this, and I'll do the same dd here. For I don't need to do even this return. I don't need to do even this request. I can just call this get this, and I will be able to get that value here. So the URL for the URI for this is, so for this to work, we need to make a little more changes here. We need to pass one more parameter, whatever I want. So I'll call this whatever I want. I'll just call whatever. And here the second parameter is the what which I want to pass here. So I'll just change this to underscore, and I will pass this as a parameter to that. Get this, and I also need to initialize this variable. I'm initializing with empty, so this is the variable I'm going to pass here. Now if I go into the controller, and I'm already passing this get this, and I'll get this here. So here the test or the deployment here is the one which we want to get here. This call control slash and whatever we give here. So call control slash, this is get underscore this. I need to pass this variable to the controller. So I'm passing it in this way as whatever. So that means the second parameter here. So instead of getting this request, I'm also getting the second one. I here name this as get this. So now let me run this and see. So I called call controller slash deployment. You see, I'm able to see this deployment. I'll call something like some random letters I type. You can see I'm able to see that. And if I see request all, you can see nothing because nothing is from the request. And if I do something like id equal to something like this, you might see that one. So that's how you can get the value from the roots. And the next thing is, as I said, I call roots from an application. Like we have this test return, test. I'll just call this root. So we have this welcome do.blade. Here I will say ahref equal to this test return, and I will say click here. So it's called in this test. So I'll call this slash test where this welcome to.blade is called. So I'll go to slash test. You can see slash test, it says test page, and click here. I just described this test page and click here, and here I given this URL as slash as test return. So click that. So it's going to this test return page, and the test return shows this hello static text, and the hello static text is shown here. So here what I've done is basically I have just called the root from anywhere. You can, that means these are the roots. This is slash test return slash call controller 2. I will also just for this output sake, you will see I'll just call this call controller 2, and I'll give something like random. And what I ideally expect when I click this is to see this random text. So if I click here, I should see that text random. Actually I have kept this here in this controller, I kept this as td. So if I go to this page, and if I click here, you see it's going to this random and showing me that random. Not only here in this welcome.blade.php file, you can call this root anywhere, then this will be called here, whatever it is, whatever the root you give here, that will be mapped to this roots.php web.php file, and it will be shown. So now I have said this, like what if I have a big URL, like a very big URL product, like if you see here, like it says laravel.com docs/8.x/deployment, and if I have some more URLs like this, I don't feel like to write everything here. Later if I change to docs to documentation, I have to change everywhere. I have called this root. Like if my actual thing was like this, and I have linked this in many of the places in my project, and suppose there is some root like this. So what happens is, if I want to change docs to documentation, I should not only change here in this roots.php file, but I have to go to everywhere where I have mentioned this root and change there. So that is a big that is a little bit of headache. So we don't want to do that. That's where this named roots come into place. So I'll just undo all this. So what this name roots does is, it allows us to do a name to this root. So what we can do is, after we go here, after the root is done, we can just name this. You can call the name and give a name like so it will be something like name roots test. So I'm calling this name roots test, and here where I will be calling this which might create a problem if we change that. I can call that named routes. I need to just call this root and give that here named root test. So what should ideally happen when I click here, that means when I click that link, it will go to this root called named roots, and that named roots is this test return. That means it should return hello static text when I click on this test page. So let me do that first. So here I'll go to test again, and you see test page, click here. So what should happen if I click here? So click here, and the root is and the href is named root test. So the named root test is for this root, that means slash test return. It should return hello static text. So let me see that. See, it's showing hello static text and it's test return. You see, it is test. I'm not linking here hello. You can see it's going to this root, but I'm not typing that here. I'm just giving this named root test. So wherever I had this link, test return. So if I want to change that to something else, something like this, or something else, like I need to only change here in this place, not in all the places where I added that. So that's the importance of this named roots. That's how we can add these named roots. And one more thing I want to say about this roots is, if you see, I'm always calling this get. Not only get, we can use so many things here. We can have, you can see, you can have get, we can have post. This is the type of HTTP request. If we are getting, if we can use this get. If it's a post request, we can use post. We can use any. That means it will accept either get request or post request. So I'll just show an example. If I change it to post, and this test ideally should not work, because all these things which you are calling from the URL is all get requests. So if I do a get request for /test, you see the get method is not supported on this root. Supported methods post. So only post request for this test will be performed, and post requests you cannot perform on these URLs. We need to do some backend thing. I'll explain you all that later. So post won't work, and there's any, that means which accepts either get or post. So now this should work because we are accepting either of this. You can see this is test page again worked. So if you want to see what all the options, if you go to Laravel documentation here about routing here, if I go to routing, and you'll see all the available methods here. You can see get, post, put, patch, delete options. These are all the available router methods. And you can see you can also use match, and you can give some of the options like get, post, put, patch, something like that. And if you see this any, so we can use all these things here. This is some sort of tutorial on routing. I covered most of the concepts of which we generally use while writing a Laravel application. This is just returning a view. This is just returning a static text. I have told about named routes, calling controller. So this is just even in the controller I'm returning static text, because this tutorial is only on routes. Later when I go into the controllers, that is the very next video, I will explain about controllers, and I will tell you in depth of how to get the data, manipulate the data, show, and all such things. So this is the video on routing. So stay tuned for next video.